Hey everybody, I'm Dr. John Douillard at LifeSpa.com, where we prove the ancient medical wisdom of Ayurveda. Today I want to talk about the opportunity that we have to cleanse during the spring and fall, but particularly around the equinox and the solstices. In Ayurveda, this is something called ritu-sandhi, which is the junction point or the gap between the seasons. Now, spring and fall are considered junction point seasons. They really link summer and winter for us, which are sort of the two major expressions of nature. But diving into the details, Ayurveda also says if you can actually detoxify or make a major change in your lifestyle at the equinox period or at the solstice period, you get like some extra credit. There's more benefit there. And I want to talk about the science behind how that happens and how they came to this idea that right at the equinox and right at the solstices, if you don't transition well, they actually link the beginning stage of the disease process to not transitioning properly during that period of time. So we have a huge window in the spring to cleanse and a huge window in the fall to cleanse. But if you can make a cleanse or some major dietary changes and shifts in your lifestyle, getting deep rest, retreating, things like that, around the equinox and solstices, it actually provides deeper benefit, which is obviously why historically traditional folks really did celebrate the equinox and the solstice, because there are major transitions, right? Really, really important. So what happens in the springtime, early in the spring, is that the UV radiation is actually the sun is too low in the sky for the UV light to actually penetrate during the winter months. At the equinox, the sun starts moving above the equator. So in the northern hemisphere, we're going to get way more, the beginning of the growing amount of UV radiation. Before that, the vast majority of the light that we got was infrared light, which is ground penetrating. It penetrates the earth, it penetrates our skin, which is why when you walk outside, you see the deer and the elk, out there in the freezing cold, or the cows out there in the freezing cold. They're absorbing infrared light, which heats them from the inside out. If there wasn't that infrared light, which is a slower waveform, which penetrates deeply into the tissues, through the skin, through the clothes, even through our bones, to deeply warm us and rebuild and rejuvenate us, that infrared light drives through an enzyme called cytochrome C oxidase. It makes the mitochondria in your cells to make more energy. So it's really important that we get out there even in the winter when there's not that much UV radiation. You're getting lots of really beneficial infrared light. And the problem with that is that we live indoors. 90% of the time, the average American is inside. And the new LED lights don't have any heat in them, therefore no infrared light. So we have what's beginning to happen in our culture is something called an infrared light deficiency. So in the winter and in the spring, in the summer, anytime, that infrared light never goes away. So that's why we really want to be outside. Now, after the equinox, what happens is that UV radiation, which is more pitta-provoking, more heating in nature, that begins to rise. So you have that ground penetrating warmth of the infrared light in the early spring with the growing amount of UV light, and now you have that perfect combination to make kapha. That kapha is the heating of the UV light, melts the snow, warms the earth, makes the mud, creates an environment of mucus and somewhat congestion. The earth holds on to more water. We have this kapha quality beginning to brew in the environment, which allows seeds to germinate and things to grow. And that's the beginning of nature's new year, right at that equinox moment. So from the early part of the equinox, great opportunity to cleanse and do a detox. And we offered a cleanse during that time this year, which is really cool. But then what happens is as the UV light begins to grow, as we move towards the solstice, it warms things up even more, creates more surface evaporation. That creates more rains, and then more spring rains create more mud, more mucus, more kapha. So by the end of the summer or spring season before the solstice, you have an accumulation of kapha and a potential aggravation of kapha. So as we move to the solstice, we have one more amazing opportunity to do a detox and shovel out all that excess kapha that's brewing during the spring season, right? Now, you can cleanse anytime in the spring. I really think the benefits are amazing, and we should do something during that period of time. That's why all the bitter roots are harvested, the dandelion is harvested, the ginger, the turmeric, all these liver cleansing herbs are harvested in the spring. This is the time to do a really powerful detox. But diving into the details is kind of fun to know we have another amazing opportunity to cleanse during the solstice, because during the springtime, nature said, okay, I know it's going to be rainy. I know it's going to be muddy. It's going to create congestion. It might even make you hold on to more water. It might even make you gain more weight. It might make you feel tired. It might make you feel lethargic. It might give you allergies and congestion because there's so much mucus and kind of congestion in your body because of the earth and us holding on to more water. And nature's plan for that was to give you calorie restriction because there's nothing really being harvested in the springtime, fasting more, which is a really important time as well this time of the year to do that, and also the harvest, the dandelions and the bitter greens and those microgreens that come out of the ground early spring are very pungent, bitter, and astringent, which are the perfect taste to balance your kapha. However, if you've been eating mac and cheese and pizza all spring long and you have a lot of kapha still building up, then if you don't cleanse during that solstice period, that UV radiation will maximize at this point of the solstice. And that heat will continue to brew through a process called thermal accumulation, where even though when at the solstice the sun starts to go back down to the southern hemisphere, it's still way hotter in July and August and September on the earth, even though the sun is getting lower in the sky. So it doesn't really make sense. But there's a thing called thermal accumulation. That UV radiation, even though it goes to the solstice and starts to come back down after the solstice, that thermal accumulation allows lots of UV radiation, lots of infrared light to keep the earth really warm for the next 2 or 3 months. And that heat, that pitta, can bake the mucus lining your respiratory tract, lining your intestinal tract, and create something called hardened mucoid material, which lines those villi of your intestinal tract, blocks the filter for detoxification and assimilation and absorption, and creates compromised digestive function, alters your microbiome, and sets you up for what Ayurveda said was the beginning of the disease process. Because at the end of every season, there's an accumulation of the qualities of that season. The next season said, oh, you guys are all muddy and congested. I'm going to give you more heat, more summer heat to dry all that out. But if you created excess mucus, then you're going to have that excess mucus will, if you don't shove it out with a cleanse or a detox or calorie restriction or eating seasonal food or changing your diet and all those things I mentioned, then you're going to end up in a situation where you have way more mucus going into the summer after the solstice, which will bake and create hardened mucoid material in your intestinal tract, which is kind of really amazing how when you look at the science and what's happening in nature and you put it all together, it makes really good sense to do some type of a cleanse or some type of seasonal transition during that time, right? So, lots to think about there. I have a whole article about this with all the science and references there on my website at lifespa.com. Sort of the last chance to spring cleanse is the solstice period, which is a great time to do an Ayurvedic detox. So go to our website at lifespa.com and check out that article and read all that and get more information about that. A couple of other things to make sure you do during the springtime. Shop off of our spring grocery list. It's free. Get that information on my website, the same article that links to every grocery list in this article. Sort of the last chance to cleanse in the spring, all about solstice cleansing. Then when summer hits after the solstice, go on to the shift over to the summer pitta reducing grocery list and eat off of those. You can eat more, you can start considering more spring herbs in the spring, like our mucus destroyer, turmeric, tulsi, all the herbs like guggul, which is a powerful herb for detoxifying fat and getting you to be a better fat burner. But after the solstice, shift to things like brahmi and shatavari and mangista and neem. These are the herbs you want to think about, and I've written articles about them, and there's links in this article about the solstice, so you can go check that out. It's really, I think, amazing kind of how nature provides the right herbs and the right food for the right season to give you the right bugs, to give you the best benefit for that season and the transition into the next. It makes really good sense. Now, a lot of you folks are asking me, well, when should I cleanse and when's the best time to cleanse? So I'll give you some options of sort of cleansing options. The first option would be to do our Colorado 14-day Ayurvedic cleanse, digestive and lymph and reset at the equinox. And then a lot of folks want to do another cleanse and do a short home cleanse, our 4-day cleanse, which is a free ebook during the solstice. That would be kind of an ideal situation, probably the most ideal if you can do all that. The second option would be do 2 short home cleanses, one during the equinox and one during the solstice. That would be the second sort of ideal situation. And the third ideal situation is to do a Colorado Ayurvedic cleanse anytime between this equinox and solstices, or do a short home cleanse anytime between the equinox and solstices. But don't forget that we have to change our diet. And if you download those grocery lists, circle those foods, maybe look at the herbs that are for each season, and I put those together. You can circle those and get some of those herbs and have them during that season as well. But make sure you do something during this seasonal transition of spring into summer and then fall into winter. Those are the opportunities to make sure that we really prevent against any ill health or any issues there. Okay, so there you have it. Go to my website at lifespa.com and get the article associated with this video and learn all about why it's important to cleanse during the equinox and particularly the solstice, because we're knocking on that door as we speak. And then while you're there, sign up for our newsletter. You get this information in your inbox every week. And also check out our Ayurvedic store with all of our organic Ayurvedic herbs. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. John Douillard. Do you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe and share.
This recording is brought to you by LifeSpa, where ancient Ayurvedic wisdom meets modern science. Get access to free health video newsletters by Dr. John at lifespa.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.